Welcome to Hope Happenings, the official podcast of the Radford University Highlander Center for Character and Public Impact. My name is Devin, and I am a student assistant to the center, and this is Dr. Heather Keith.
I'm Heather Keith. I'm Executive Director of Faculty Development, Professor of Philosophy, and Director of the new Highlander Center for Character and Public Impact. In this podcast, we focus on how Radford students and faculty are exploring and developing great character.
And today on the podcast, it's my pleasure to introduce Dr. Paige Tan. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself, please?
Hi there, I'm Paige Tan, and I'm a professor of political science at Radford. I'm also the founding director of the Wicked Festival, which I know we'll talk about in the podcast. And I've taken a new job as a faculty fellow in graduate affairs, so I work in the graduate space now as well. About me, I'm a political scientist, as I said, and I study dictatorships and democratization. And so that's led me to this public and applied work because I care very much about how society is.
So tell us a little bit about Wicked Fest. How did it start? What is it?
Well, Wicked Fest began about in 2021. We had read a faculty book group on a book called Creating Wicked Students, and we were so moved by the great learning experiences that were presented in this book that we decided to figure out a way to apply it on our campus. And so the three pieces of this approach are that you engage students on really tough public problems, and that you get them to make themselves authorities on these issues. And they have to push all the way to finding solutions. They can't just study problems. So those three pieces, the students being authorities, we needed a place for them to showcase themselves as authorities where they could present their ideas and their solutions to others. And so that led to the creation of the Wicked Festival. And so it's been going every semester since 2021.
Can you give us an example or two about what kinds of wicked problems the students are approaching or trying to solve in the Wicked Fest?
Well, so we've had classes from all 7 of Radford's colleges participate, and so we've had a diversity of problems that are explored as well. But things range from sort of the kind of classic macro level wicked problems like climate, inequality, and those sorts of things, to real kind of ground level manifestations of these problems here in Radford. So hunger in our area, pollution of our groundwaters, things like that. My students will work on very concrete problems, and they have to take actions in the real world, some of them, on their problems.
And so what makes this different than simply just unpacking social issues like other colleges and universities do?
Well, I think as academics, we are trained to study problems. We can identify things and sort of break them down into their core components. In political science, something we study is democratic backsliding. That's when a country is sort of a democracy and it sort of falls backwards. In sociology, you might study how there's disparate access to things based on the structures of power. What's different about this approach is that you don't just study that problem, but you push on to the solution. So it's very action-oriented, very hopeful about the future, that we can do something about these problems. They're not inevitable.
So I think one thing that makes your teaching unique is that you're incorporating the concept of character into the students' work in wicked problems. And so it's not just about sort of what are the problems and what are potential solutions, but what is the student's place in doing that? Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, so I think the focus on character, I found it by accident because I was trying to teach students to solve these problems, and I was assuming that they would care about the problems. I was just taking that as like we would all care, but it's not a given. And so I realized over time that I needed to get the students to care about problems that they didn't personally suffer from. I needed to get the students to have the intellectual humility to realize they didn't have all of the answers. And I needed them to have empathy, again, for others. So all of those things, I really put a special focus on hope in my teaching, because if of all of those virtues, if you don't hope that there's a solution to this problem, you might be paralyzed into inaction. And so hope to me was really the most important of the virtues to focus on. And so in my class, we focus on showing how people in difficult situations have kept hope and as they've persevered in their struggles.
Neat.
And so what is a specific Wicked project that stood out to you that made you specifically hopeful for the future?
Hopeful. So I have sort of two sets of really great sets of projects. The first one actually was a disaster. This student was having trouble getting on at Radford. They didn't fit in. They decided eventually they didn't want to be a college student. Their group fell apart. I mean, everything was almost a disaster. But this student, for their project, went home and demonstrated in front of the last reproductive health clinic in their entire county in Virginia, all by themselves, one person standing out there all day, and just came back from that experience having just wrote the most incredible reflection. And I'm almost going to tear up just thinking about it because it was so moving. The power that she felt doing that, even in the face of people in her area shouting out at her, and she just showed so much courage in that situation. So that's one that was from my very first time doing the class, and it will always stick with me. But I also have higher level students who do very sophisticated projects where they apply theories about authoritarianism. They use activist techniques that have been pioneered by Gandhi and Martin Luther King, and they use that to kind of strategize how to take down an authoritarian regime. And they've been recognized at the Wicked Festival. About 4 or 5 of those projects have won awards because of the incredible power of the students bringing together that theory and the activist techniques and their knowledge of the countries that they all bring together to strategize these changes.
We've talked a little bit about how you incorporate the concept of hope with your students, but in the work that you do, what makes you most hopeful?
I think I'm a very hopeful person in general. I've had some tough things in my life, and I really believe that I get up every day happy, and I think that is important. I think I'm also though I'm a political scientist, I'm also a student of history. And I look back and I read about times like the fall of the Roman Empire and the English Civil War. And I read about those times and I think about people that lived in those times. And, a lot of us, we focus on, we say, oh, now, we're living in such a terrible time. But I know that those kind of revolutions, they come and they go and they make changes. Sometimes they're important changes that can be for the good. So kind of long-term, the arc of history, I think, is going to bend in our favor.
Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing the work that you do and what makes you hopeful and how your students are using hope and other character virtues in their classes as well.
Thank you for having me.
And stay tuned for more episodes of Hope Happenings. And if you see a great active character on campus or in the community, please reach out to us. We would love to feature it.